So why are so many men abdicating their authentic masculinity? This concept that we've been talking about in the last few videos of this authentic masculinity, this concept's been debated, it's been misunderstood, it's been criticized a lot by modern culture, and a lot of men today find themselves unsure of what it means to be a man in a world that sends all of these conflicting messages about masculinity. A lot have been conditioned to suppress their natural instincts, while others have passively stepped back, uncertain of their role in society, family, personal relationships. And the result is a generation of men who are actually abdicating their authentic masculinity. They're leaving a void that affects not only themselves, but the communities and the families that they're meant to lead. So why is it happening? And more importantly, how can men reclaim their place? How can we reclaim this authentic masculinity? So let's explore. Let's look at some of the underlying reasons for this crisis, the ways in which men are stepping away from their roles, and some of the actionable steps that we can use to rediscover and embrace our authentic masculinity. So what does it mean to abdicate our role? Well, the word abdicate means to renounce or to give up a position or place of responsibility of power. And the context here of masculinity, this abdicating that we're talking about, is men are stepping back from their responsibilities. They're stepping back from the qualities and the roles that define their authentic manhood. And this doesn't mean that we're to conform to outdated stereotypes, but rather to embrace the core attributes of true leadership, of strength, of accountability, and purpose that are intrinsic to us being a man. So when men abdicate their masculinity, they do it a lot of times without being aware of it. They fall into the traps of society. They give in to fear. They are overcome with the distractions that pull them away from their purpose. And these consequences are profound. They cause us to lose confidence. They're seen in unfulfilled potential and in weakened relationships. Society also suffers because there's an absence of strong, authentic men, and this absence creates instabilities in families, in communities, and institutions. So why are men abdicating their roles? Well, there's a lot of factors that contribute to this widespread issue. These aren't excuses, but there's some explanations that may help us understand the root cause of this problem. One, we have societal conditioning. Modern culture most of the time sends mixed signals about masculinity. On one hand, the traditional masculine traits like strength and assertiveness and leadership are criticized as toxic. On the other hand, men are still expected to provide, to protect, to lead, and so these conflicting expectations create this confusion. They create this hesitation, and men are told to be sensitive but not weak, strong but not domineering, assertive but not aggressive. And many feel that they just can't win, so they choose to just step back entirely and avoid criticism and avoid confrontation. 2, we've got fear of rejection or failure. Fear is a powerful force. And that fear keeps a lot of men stuck. They worry that stepping into their masculine role will lead to rejection, whether it's from partners, peers, society at large. This fear often stems from past experiences of failure, of judgment, of ridicule. And instead of risking that further rejection, they choose passivity. They just choose to step back. Then 3, we've got distractions and addictions. This modern life that we live in offer through a lot of conveniences that we have. It offers multiple distractions that pull us away from our purpose. Social media, video games, pornography, binge watching shows are just some of the examples. And these activities provide temporary comfort, but lead to long-term stagnation. Men who are consumed by these distractions lose their focus. They lose their discipline and they lose their drive. And then 4th, we have a lack of mentorship. In previous generations, young men often learned about masculinity through strong role models, through fathers, through uncles, through coaches, through community leaders. And today, a lot of men grow up without a positive male figure to guide them. And as a result, they enter into adulthood without a clear understanding of what it means to be a man or how to step into that role. And then 5th, we have emotional wounds and trauma. Unresolved emotional wounds and trauma can prevent men from fully embracing their masculinity, whether it's from childhood neglect, abusive relationships, or rejection from society. These experiences create self-doubt and fear. And men that haven't addressed these wounds, they may struggle to step into their roles confidently. So now we see some of the causes, the underlying causes. So how are men doing this? How are they stepping away from their authentic masculinity? How are they abdicating this role that manifest in these subtle but damaging behaviors? Well, there's usually patterns. We see that they avoid responsibility. One of the clearest signs that men have abdicated their role is they avoid responsibility. And that can show up in several areas in their life. Failing to lead or contribute equally in a partnership is going to cause relationship issues. You can see it in work, in their employment. Settling for mediocrity instead of striving for excellence. It not only brings them down personally, but it brings the entire organization down. And then they're abdicating by avoiding their role for the family as the protector and the provider of those that they love and those that love them. And then we see an overly submissive behavior. Cooperation and compromise are essential in relationships. But some men swing way too far into submission. They avoid expressing their opinions. They don't set any boundaries. And they won't stand firm in any values. And this comes from a lot of times from fear of conflict or rejection or fear of abandonment. And then they have a lack of ambition. When you look in many of these men's lives, they've abdicated their masculinity by giving up on their goals and dreams. Instead of pursuing a life of purpose, they settle for comfort and convenience, and this lack of ambition leads to stagnation and dissatisfaction. And then you see it in emotional suppression. While Emotional regulation is an important hallmark of authentic masculinity. Emotional suppression is not. Some men withdraw emotionally, refusing to connect with others or express vulnerability, and this creates barriers in their relationships, and it stunts their personal growth. So, what can we do? What steps can we as men take to reclaim this authentic masculinity? Well, the good news is that this abdicated role can be reclaimed, but it requires some intentional effort. It requires some self-awareness. It requires a willingness to step outside of your comfort zone. So here's a few steps that you can take to help you regain your rightful place in that role of authentic masculinity. First, you've got to define your purpose. Authentic masculinity begins with purpose. Take time to reflect on those things that matter most to you. What do you want to achieve in life? Who do you want to become? Defining your purpose gives you direction and it gives you motivation. And I recommend a notebook, writing down your goals and revisit them regularly. And I prefer physical notebooks in the analog so that you get the action of writing, and then you can go back and review. And when you're sitting around, instead of pulling that phone out when you get bored and scrolling through it mindlessly, use your notebook. Go back through. Look at some of the things you've written. Look at some of the ideas you've had. And write these goals down. Write these ambitions down and revisit them regularly. And this will help align your daily actions to your long-term goals. Then second, you want to take responsibility. Reclaiming masculinity requires owning your life. It requires owning the choices you've made. It means not blaming everyone else for everything that's going on in your life, but it means actually stepping into a place of leadership. So whether you have the title or not is irrelevant, but it means actually stepping into this role of leadership in your relationships, in your career, in the community, and commit to being a dependable partner, a dependable friend, a dependable spouse, a dependable colleague, and embrace the challenges that come along with it, but see them as opportunities to grow rather than to shirk and avoid. And then 3, you've got to build some discipline. Discipline is the foundation of authentic masculinity. Without self-discipline, purpose remains. So set some daily habits that align with your goals. Limit your distraction. Cut down on that excessive screen time. Put your phone down for a little bit and focus on some productive activities like exercise. Get up and move, like reading. Reading to learn, reading to explore, reading to build new skills. Sign up for a class, whether it's online or in person. Learn some new skills. And then 4th, you've got to develop some emotional intelligence. Authentic masculinity balances strength with your emotional awareness. So learn to regulate your emotions. Express vulnerability when the time's necessary. Connect with others in meaningful ways. Learn to practice active listening. Instead of you're placing a conversation where you're just waiting to respond, you're listening for what to respond, practice active listening. And that means viewing that other person in the conversation and what they're saying as the most interesting thing being said. And then seek support for some of your unresolved emotional wounds through counseling, through coaching, through mentorship. Which leads me to number 5 is to seek mentorship. Surround yourself with strong, positive male role models. These mentors can guide you. They can challenge you. They can hold you accountable. Join a men's group. Join a mentorship program. Get involved in communities that value growth and authentic masculinity. And you can also learn from books, from podcasts, from videos like this, from speakers that embody authentic masculinity. And then 6, lead with courage. Reclaiming masculinity requires courage on your part. The courage to stand firm in your values, to take risks, and to face some challenges head on. Take action even when you feel uncertain at times. Reframe this fear as an opportunity for growth. So today I want to issue a call to reclaim that authentic masculinity. We've been abdicating this masculinity for far too long. And it's not just an individual issue, it's a societal one. When men step back from this role, families weaken, communities fall, and the world loses the strength, stability, and leadership that authentic masculinity can provide. But it's not the end of the story. Every man has the power to reclaim his place. It starts with small, intentional steps. Defining your purpose, taking responsibility, building some discipline, and seeking out positive mentors and role models. It's about standing up. It's about stepping in. And it's about embracing the role that you were designed to fulfill. Reclaiming masculinity is not about dominance. It's not about conforming to these toxic stereotypes, but it's about becoming a man of integrity, a man of strength, a man of purpose. The world needs these kind of men. Men that are willing to lead, to protect, and to serve. My question for you is, are you willing to answer that call?